we have a total budget of around 100 million euros per year, and a little bit more than 1,000 people are working at the Institute. Our main site is here in Stuttgart. I said from the beginning on, I don't want to have startups by accident. I want to have a real planned technology roadmap-based process for that. And I want to inspire all our employees to be part of that movement. Around 80% of the successful startups in Germany moved more or less to foreign investors over time. And because there's not enough funding in Germany. Personalized medicine, personalized therapies, especially for cancer. There are different therapies in the market, but when you produce a therapy like that, it's often very, very expensive. So there are therapies in the market in that area which have a price of 300, 400, 500,000 euros per patient per therapy. And we were now able to create a completely fully automated system for that, which helps to really produce for one patient, one therapy in a fully automatic way. And that will reduce the costs by around about 80%.
Hello, Thomas. Welcome to the AlpMomentum Podcast about innovation and entrepreneurship and how to kind of spin out entrepreneurial-driven companies, startups out of a scientific context. And with my venture capital firm that I co-founded, Redstone, we've done the largest study on startups out of universities and research institutions, and very, very happy to have you as a guest today.
Hello, Michael. It's a pleasure to be part of the podcast. And I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks again. Also, we met actually already, I think maybe a year ago in person, where you were so kind to invite us to your institute close to Stuttgart. And I was actually very impressed about what I've seen. And then since then said, we have to talk. We have to bring you on the show. Great to make that happen today. But before we dive into your professional career, maybe you can quickly describe a little bit about background, where you're coming from.
I'm the director of one of the Fraunhofer Institutes. And as many other engineers in Germany, I studied in Aachen at the RWTH, mechanical engineering. And after that, I had the opportunity to do my PhD at the WZL in Aachen, which is more focused on mechanical engineering topics, like machine building and other topics. And then after 5 years, after the PhD phase, I switched to industry and started my industry career. And to be honest, I never planned to have a career in the scientific area. I always saw myself as an industry guy. And I started to work for a company here in Weinheim, close to Heidelberg, Freudenberg, which is a family-owned business. The challenge during that time was that I was, I think, 32 or 33 years old. And I had the opportunity to be the general manager of a small Freudenberg company, the machine builder and tooling manufacturer of Freudenberg. It was a restructuring case. And so from the beginning on, I was really under pressure and had to restructure that business. And at Freudenberg, the concept is that Freudenberg tries to develop entrepreneurship on all levels. So even as a young guy, you get very soon the possibility to really work and to feel as an entrepreneur. And so that was my starting point in the industry. So I did that for 4 years. Did the restructuring, developed new solutions, and I integrated a lot of new technologies into the processes of that company. And after 4 years, then I moved on to my biggest customer at Freudenberg, the sealing technology area. And then I was responsible for the production sites of sealing technologies at Freudenberg, around 50 production sites worldwide, with a specific focus on network optimization, factory planning, lean management, investments in new technologies, closing factories, opening new ones in China, in India, and even in the United States and Mexico. So that was my job then for another 4 years. And then I had the opportunity to really go back to research. And 2011, I started then I restarted my scientific career here at Fraunhofer. And it's a combination. So I'm a professor at the University of Stuttgart with my own research institute on the university side for basic research topics, and as well I have a full professorship, so I do my lectures as well, like all the other professors are doing. And on the other hand, I'm a director of the Fraunhofer Institute, the Fraunhofer Institute for Production Technology and Automation here in Stuttgart. And in this combination, I have now a lot of fun for the last 14 years. And my specific focus, my research focus is on the transformation, digital and biological transformation of manufacturing.
Very impressive and actually very unusual, I would say, kind of CV in the world of academia, where you're currently definitely playing. And both University of Stuttgart, but especially also Fraunhofer, obviously are highly kind of scientific institutes. Maybe let's quickly start. I would like in general to focus a little bit more on IPA, the institute that you're working with Fraunhofer, because I think Fraunhofer is obviously such a renowned brand, but also such a lot discussed. And maybe you can quickly describe IPA, the institute that you're chairing. How big is it? How many people are there? Like the budget, if you can share, what are you doing there? And so people can understand it a little bit. And how is it embedded in the larger Fraunhofer context?
Maybe I start with the larger Fraunhofer context. Fraunhofer is the biggest applied research institution in Europe, with around 3 billion euros of budget and 25,000 people working for Fraunhofer. And Fraunhofer consists out of 75 institutes. And these institutes are sometimes a little bit smaller, sometimes a little bit bigger. And my institute is one of these institutes, and Fraunhofer IPA is one of the bigger ones. So we have a total budget of around 100 million euros per year. And a little bit more than 1,000 people are working at the institute. Our main site is here in Stuttgart, but we have as well some locations in other regions, like in Mannheim or in Bamberg, and as well in Austria, in Vienna. There's a subsidiary, and we have as well some research groups in China, in Shanghai, and as well in Japan. And we are just busy in implementing a kind of office in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley in order to give us the opportunity to build a bridge between the United States and Germany when it comes to entrepreneurship and to startups. So what are we doing? The title is Production Technology Automation, very broad range of different applications and technologies. Our main focus is automation in the field of robotics, but in different applications. So robotical automation in the medical sector, in the health sector, for sure in the automotive sector and machine building sector, the pharmaceutical industry. So we try to automate processes which are highly complex, which are difficult to automate. That's one of our main research topics. And we develop as well production technologies which are very flexible, which you can use for personalized production, like different surface technologies, painting technologies, but as well additive manufacturing is one of our core technologies we are driving. And last but not least, we are focusing as well on the organization of manufacturing companies. So it's always the question, how can we implement technologies, automation into processes, into end-to-end processes, and how can we partly or fully automate the whole end-to-end process? So from the customer request, from the customer order to the manufactured product, which we develop back to the customer.
Very, very impressive. You could say you're basically at the core of the thunder of what everybody is talking about in the world of AI and robotics. I think a lot of the buzzwords or not so buzzy words you can find in what you do. So basically, you're the one who makes the magic happen. Or not you, but your whole kind of institute and the 1,000 people. But Maybe coming to one of the core topics of the podcast would be interesting. I mean, Fraunhofer has a gigantic budget, a lot of people, and oftentimes is criticized for that it could kind of create a lot more startups than it actually does currently. I know there are a lot of initiatives, but if you take the whole budget to the amount of people to what's coming out, there are a lot of other scientific institutes that maybe do more. Now, obviously, there are different kind of tasks for Fraunhofer, but maybe you could describe a little bit what are you actually doing to kind of create real world applications, not only for corporations that you work together. Maybe that would also be actually an interesting part, because I think there are two things. One is you collaborate closely with corporations, and the other one is also like in your own kind of the topics you're doing research and where you're creating startups are trying to create. How do you do this? How are your processes? Do you encourage people? What do you do there?
Maybe from a strategic perspective, an answer. For me, applied research and entrepreneurship are the two sides of the same coin. So when you want to be really successful in applied research, out of my point of view, you have to have an entrepreneurial spirit and culture in order to do so, right? Because applied research means you take some results of the basic research, you take some new technologies, and you combine that in a kind of interdisciplinary way to a systemic solution, and then you transfer that solution to the market. And your target is always to make this solution in the market successful, right? So from the beginning on, when you start to think about applied research, the first question should always, what are the market requirements? What are the needs of the market, and how can I evaluate if my idea is really successful in the market? What are the characteristics to evaluate it? And last but not least, what kind of requirements maybe do some investors have in order to finance then that solution in the market? And that is for us always the starting point for all our processes. So when we create something new, when we think about a new research project, from the beginning on, we ask these questions. What are the market requirements? Have you spoken to maybe 20, 30 or 40 potential customers? Do you have already a lead customer? Do we exactly understand what are the market needs and the specific needs and requirements of that customer? And how can we finance that process after the research budget is gone? Do we have an opportunity really to acquire additional money, to create additional budgets, to move then the solution into the market and make it really successful in the market? So that is our strategy. And as I mentioned, when you want to follow a process like that, you need a kind of entrepreneurial thinking and an entrepreneurial approach. And that is the reason why I pushed, when I entered Fraunhofer, the institute 14 years ago, this development. So I said from the beginning on, I don't want to have startups by accident. I want to have a real planned technology roadmap-based process for that. And I want to inspire all our employees to be part of that movement. And I don't want to create some hurdles or to stop people moving their idea into the market. I want to push them. I don't want to demotivate them on the way to the market. I want to help whenever I'm able to help, as an institute, as a person. And when you do that over years, then you create a kind of entrepreneurial culture. And now we are quite successful with our approach. So I think we are one of the most successful Fraunhofer Institute concerning startups, around between 2 and 3 startups per year. We have, in the moment, I think 23 startups teams in our organization. And we created just 1.5 years ago our own incubator. So they have now here their own building. All our startups are in the building when they start their business. And we help them as well to find budgets funding, investors, and we push them as much as possible. And that is a quite successful approach.
What? So just IPA has 23 startups now in total.
Right.
I think
23 startup teams in different phases at the moment, and year by year, around 2, 3, 4 startups were created and founded.
So you're building a whole pipeline from research projects to and the process you have described at the beginning. I think that's actually probably absolutely core to start with customers and not only with the technical problem. I think too many kind of, let's say, scientifically driven teams start with a technical issue or problem and then look for potential customers. The approach you described, would you say that's just within IPA, or is this true for the whole Fraunhofer organization, or you don't know?
First of all, I only can speak for the IPA because here I know the organization really in detail. And as I mentioned, we have 75 institutes. And to be honest, maybe I know 20 of them and have visited them already. And all the others maybe are in other areas and I have no specific contact. So it's not okay if I would judge about their processes, right? But for sure, when you look at the KPIs of the whole Fraunhofer Society, and when you compare that with our KPIs, then we are definitely better than the average. So there is a potential at Fraunhofer to really increase the startup activity, I'm sure. But we are not so bad. So often in the news you read, Fraunhofer does not really push startups. That's not the case. We really have a support. It's often the question if the responsible people are really willing to help and support startups. And are they really convinced that it's helpful for their institute to create startups? Because, when you create a startup in a research institute, usually the people who are in the team are excellent people, right? So you lose people, excellent people, when they've found their company. And usually they take a research topic with them, which is maybe very successful at the institute, and you earn money with that. So when you create a startup at the beginning as a research institution, you lose excellent people and the possibility to earn money, right? So, and maybe it's too on a short perspective, but for me, it was always clear when I do that, I have as well a kind of positive disruption in my institute. So we have to do something new. And if a topic is mature, you have to bring it into the market. And on the other hand, we work intensively together with our startups. So they even fund projects here at my institute. So they are as well a kind of source for funding for me. And often we are as well shareholders, and sometimes they are very successful. And when there's an exit process, we as well earn some money then. And this is a nice source as well to take that money then and to invest it again into new startups.
Very, very, very great attitude, I think. And you're describing probably the absolute core topic when talking about spinning out corporations out of research institutes. There are two things. One is, does the, let's say, leadership of a institute want that actually because of the topics you described? Another issue I've sometimes seen is that actually the people who are working at say, why should we do that? Be it postdocs, PhDs, or even the professors who say, well, it's actually a pretty nice environment. We earn good. We have a great, safe environment. Why should we go to the rough outside world where we don't know what's happening? So maybe you can also discuss how, I mean, to work at Fraunhofer, it's great. You have good money. You have a super prestigious kind of place to work with. Everybody knows it. How do you drive that kind of mental change with people that they say, we actually want to leave Fraunhofer, we want to create startups? And what have you done about it? And then the other one is, how have you been driving the change? Because probably like trying to push people out in a way to the startups, it's not only about you, but it's about the whole organization. There are 1,000 people. There are many people then maybe also people who lead different work groups, etc. say, but why do my colleagues now have to go? Or there's how did you do this kind of change management? What did you do about it?
Good question. I think it's essential to have at the beginning some role models, some positive role models, right? So when the organization observes that there is a team and they are successful in creating their own startup, and when they see the possibilities they have to do their own thing. Yeah, it's not always earning money at the beginning; it's creating something, right? And this is really inspiring. And when you look into the eyes of these startup teams, they have shining eyes. They really want to change something. They have a vision. They share a vision, and I think that's very motivating. And then this spirit and the momentum which you create in the organization grows with every startup you create. And then step by step, at the beginning, maybe it's only a small momentum. And then after 2 years, you see, okay, now there are other inspired teams suddenly working on startups. And finally, like today, you have 20, 25, 30 teams in the organization, in many different research teams, and they all work in different phases on their entrepreneurial challenge. And that creates in the whole organization, out of my point of view, very positive momentum. And the only thing I have to do is not to stop it. Yeah, I'm deeply convinced that as a leader, you are not able to motivate somebody. Even when you have young experts in the organization, when they enter our institute at the beginning, all of them are highly motivated. I don't have to motivate them. The only thing I have to do is to reduce the hurdles of demotivation in the organization and to have positive role models in place to show them what is possible when you follow your dreams, when you really do something, when you are intrinsically really motivated and you're working on a promising topic, then work is easier, life is easier, and I think that is something which is now established in the organization. It took a while, but now we see that results and that this momentum even grows more and more, and I'm very keen to see what will happen in the future in our organization.
And what was the biggest hurdle you felt you had to overcome on this path over the last 10 or 12 years?
Oh, there are many hurdles. So we have organizational hurdles. Think about licenses. You have to negotiate contracts. For licenses, you want to maybe give with the startup into the market, or you sell a license, whatever, or they pay a fee for the license. That's always difficult because nobody really knows the value of an IP, right? And out of my point of view, and that was one solution. We said after a while, we don't want to earn money with our licensees, with startups. Makes no sense. That was one experience. So we reduced that hurdle and we said, let's have shares on a small level, not 40 or 30%, less than 10%. And let's try to keep that over time. And when the startup is successful, we can earn with the exit money and not with the licenses at the beginning of the creation of the startup. Usually you don't have enough money in the startup and you can invest it in other topics and not in licenses, right? So that was one hurdle we have reduced. Another hurdle for sure was that some of my leaders in the institute, that they do not really want to support startups because what I've mentioned, they see more the risk. Like my best people will leave my team. They take IP with them, which I can as well use to create maybe some sales volume. So that was as well a hurdle. And here we started to give the teams some money when they create a startup. So there are some incentives as a compensation. Yeah, that was also the idea of our Fraunhofer management. They offer that. So when I create a startup, I get some money from our central unit in Munich as a compensation, and then I take that money and I bring that into the different departments in which the startups have been created. So there's an incentive to create a startup because you get some money, and with the money, maybe you can develop something new, some new IP, and you can very fast maybe close the gap which occurs based on the startup spin-out process. So that was another hurdle. Then the mental hurdle in many heads. Maybe at the beginning, many researchers thought that they are not really able to create a startup, that they are not really entrepreneurs. Here we did a lot of training, qualification, innovation workshops to give the different researchers from different research teams the opportunity to meet each other and to create together something, not only a solution, as well a team. And that also leads to kind of momentum, and that helps that talented researchers finally said, okay, I try it. Yeah? I try to be an entrepreneur, and then step by step, they evolved into the role of an entrepreneur, and finally, most of them are very successful. So these were the three main hurdles maybe we had, and we tried to reduce these hurdles.
I can just mirror that, especially also the topic with the licenses, the IPs is a big one. As a venture capitalist, we constantly face this. We have right now a startup where we theoretically would like to invest, but they're just kind of stuck in negotiations with the university about the structuring of the IP. And I think I really like your approach to say, like, look, we're not earning money now where there's little money to earn, but later on with the shares, but are reasonable and don't have a situation where actually out of the institute or the university and the founders, there's already, you would need like 150 or 200% of a startup to fulfill all the requirements. But now, like having implemented, what were the kind of biggest successes you had where you said, was there two things? One is, was there a moment where you said, wow, something has really changed, just from a spirit and mental perspective? And then the other one, is there any, like, in terms of what kind of company has been created or a product that you saw where you say, like, wow, this is really also working kind of economically and in the market?
I think one remarkable success was that we were able now to create our own incubator, and that we have a dedicated team in place which really supports our startup teams the whole day long, and that they have as well developed their own business model. So within all the restrictions we usually have in a public-owned organization like Fraunhofer, we were able really to create our own incubator with a very successful business model. And the feedback of our teams is excellent concerning our incubator. They really love to work together with that team because they help wherever they can help. And they have now a lot of experience. They know how to handle processes. They know how to support startups to do the next successful steps into the market. And that is, out of my point of view, a real success. And I think we are the only Fraunhofer Institute which has an incubator like that in place. That's, I think, one success.
Before you continue, what was the core or the process in creating this incubator? And maybe you can, what did you have to do? How long did it take? What would you recommend others that are listening that want to replicate that and say, hey, we also want to do this? maybe you can dive deep in a little bit into this, because I think this is quite extraordinary what you have done and created there.
I think it's like always. It's a question of first finding the right people who are really willing to create something like that. And I was lucky. I had a PhD student, and he worked in one of our research teams in the area of business development and business model development. He did his PhD, or I started to do his PhD, and after a while I found out that he worked in his former life for an investor, and he managed startups and founded startups, and so he was quite experienced in that area. And then we talked about the possibilities to create something special at the institute, and he said, "Hey, maybe that's a job for me." Yeah, and then I said, "Bingo, yeah, that's your job." And we had already some other team members in different organizational units, and then we brought these team members together, and we had Stefan as the head of the team, and then we did some workshops and decided in which direction do we want to go, and then they started to develop everything, intrinsically motivated, and so step by step we were able to develop that concept and to establish the right processes, as well to do the negotiation and conversation with all the relevant stakeholders around us. And after a period of around 1 year, we had everything in place, and we started now around about 2 years ago with the incubator.
Definitely impressive. And also it's great to see in the end, always, even big movements, it always starts with an idea and with one person who kind of drives it forward. That's my experience. But and then right. If you look at like the second part, maybe, and I think you were just about to answer that in terms of what kind of startup or what problem, what products have been created, where you would say, hey, this was also a great success.
So one company, the name is Vibrosonic. They created a kind of what's the English name? Hörgerät.
Like for audio help or audio listening device.
An audio listening device, right, for handicapped people who were not able to hear anymore.
Very well. Hearing aid, that's the one.
Hearing aid, that's the word. Thank you very much. They created a hearing aid, which is a microelectronic, which you can put directly on your drum skin, and you don't see it from outside, and you can load it inductively, and it has an excellent quality. And they have developed that in our institute, and then they they created their own startup, and now they are very successful, and now a strategic investor stepped in, and I think next year you can buy the first model in the market. And it's really, out of my point of view, it's really not only a revolution in the sense of that it's a huge market, it's as well a revolution in the sense of that it's really, really helpful for all these people outside which need this hearing aid, right? Because often it's you have something behind the ear, or you can see it, and I think it's better when it's invisible, and it's better when even the quality of the whole device is on a completely other and higher level, right? And you combine both, and I think that it's an excellent example for a very successful startup of the Fraunhofer IPA. And
that's really cool. By the way, there's one company we've invested recently called Battery, which produces the world's thinnest battery. Maybe we should hook them up, which could be like super smaller than a millimeter.
Let's bring both companies together. I'm sure there are a lot of synergies, right? Yeah, maybe another company we just founded, Celios is the name of the company, and they create a solution which helps to fully automate the assembly of cables. So when you look into a car, you have a lot of cables in the car, right? So, and the whole cable system maybe has around 2 or 3 kilometers of cable, which has to be assembled. So pre-assembled first, and then you put it during the assembly process in the car, and you have to assemble all the cables to the different electrical systems, right? And they developed now a solution which fully automatically do the pre-assembly. And it was always impossible to do that. Yeah? When you look at the companies who are offering that, not only in the field of automotive, in many other electrical systems, you have a lot of cables which has to be assembled, right? And so that is really a very economic and flexible and fully automated solution. And they are now quite revolutionizing that market as well. They just started a year ago. Now they won on a ferry the first prize, innovation prize, and so they are quite heavy, and around 20 people are already working for them. They are funded in an excellent way, so they will as well go their way, and they will be very successful in the future, I'm sure. That is another example.
Very nice. Could that also be used for server centers, for these large kind of AI factories?
I'm sure that it can be used for that. Yeah? The basic technology for sure. Maybe you need some other devices, hardware devices for the handling, but the core is software, as always, combined with neural networks, and I think that you can use for that.
Because there's also a huge topic how to wire all these servers, and there are many kilometers of cables.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And last but not least, maybe what we are working in the moment on is a company which we want to found next year, which is also a game changer out of my point of view. I think you know personalized medicine, personalized therapies, especially for cancer. There are different therapies in the market, but when you produce a therapy like that, it's often very expensive. So there are therapies in the market in that area which have a price of 300, 400, 500,000 euros per patient per therapy. And we were now able to create a completely fully automated system for that, which helps to really produce for one patient one therapy in a fully automatic way, and that will reduce the costs by around about 80%.
Wow.
So it has as well two effects, an economic effect and a huge market as well in the future. But on the other hand, it democratizes these therapies, because when you look worldwide, who is able to pay 400,000 euro for a therapy? Maybe some benefited people in the Western countries, and that's it. But with the help of the technology, now step by step, we will bring the costs down and make then these therapies available for many patients worldwide.
Definitely something that the world needs, and that will make the world a better place. Maybe and great to see actually how many different topics you're tackling, which also speaks for the breadth and depth of what your institute is working on. Maybe to slight switch of topics. What would you something that you sometimes hear in Europe is, and what would you answer to somebody who says, you know what, academia should be there in its pure form, and you shouldn't mix academia and research and business?
That's a weird idea, isn't it? No, out of my point of view, we innovation is key, right? And if we really want to keep our wealth status, we have to push innovation, especially in countries like Germany, Europe, the Western countries, because we have high cost levels, and to keep that on that level and to be able to pay for that for other people on that high cost level, we need innovation, continuous innovation, and this innovation is mainly technology based, and that means we need research who is willing to transfer their solutions, their ideas into the market. And we often hear, especially in Germany, we are excellent in basic research, right? in artificial intelligence, in biotechnology, in basic research, we are excellent. And between the lines, it sounds so like, but all the others are too stupid to take these excellent results and bring it into the market, right? And to be honest, there are no incentives for university professors, as well, not for me, to transfer my basic research results into the market. The only incentive for research, for basic research, is the source of funding. So this is a specific funding which is difficult to get, which is more basic research related, and the quality of publications. And that is the currency for basic research. And there's no effect when a basic researcher decides to bring his idea into the market, and it maybe takes 5 or 10 years. During that time, there's no positive feedback for him, because there are no real incentives. The target system is like it is at universities. And I think that we really have to change.
So what would you change very concretely?
We should have a target system which balance three areas: research, education, and transfer, and maybe a fourth area, entrepreneurship. And I think for all these 4 areas, you can create 1 or 2 KPIs, which you can as well aggregate for a whole organization, for a university, and then the funding should be related to the success, measured with the help of these maybe 5, 6, 7 different KPIs coming out of these different areas. For the time being, you have only KPIs in the basic research areas. And that does not really foster transfer into the market. I think that's one big hurdle when we talk about bringing basic research into the market. Another big hurdle is that, especially in Germany, it's an issue. Our markets are very difficult, and the people who decide about buying something, they are very conservative. So when you have a new solution as a startup and you go to a bigger corporation, it's easy to maybe sell it one time as a prototype. But when it comes to a scaling scenario, these companies usually do not buy it on a startup level, because they don't want to have the risk that maybe the startup is in 2 or 3 years not longer in the market, or that it's an issue with the solution, so that they tend to buy at bigger, more established companies. And that is as well, I think, an issue which we really have to address. And last but not least, it's still the financing issue we have, which has nothing to do with the universities. But when you really grow and scale, it's still very difficult to get funds in the amount of 20, 40 or 50 million euros. The first 2, 3, 4 millions are easy, but the next 20, 40, 50 millions is still very difficult. And that leads to the situation that around 80% of the successful startups in Germany moved more or less to foreign investors over time. And because there's not enough funding in Germany, and that is also difficult then for universities to really bring in a very fast way their ideas, their results into the market.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one is the condition for the other. I think your reaction was interesting, that you said it's a funny idea to separate academia and kind of entrepreneurship, because I still think there is a good number of people in academia who would think that way, and what I find interesting about it is that about 250 billion or over 250 billion per year are spent on research and teaching, and most of that is actually funded by governments, be it regional or on state level. So it's taxpayers' money, and basically everybody who pays taxes finances this kind of academic endeavor. And I think, at least if possible, people and professors, postdocs, PhDs should think a little bit about if what they have invented could also have a real world use case. Obviously, there are many topics which maybe never create a startup, but just maybe take 1 hour, 2 hours per month or per quarter and think about it to do that. And it's really refreshing to see a professor like you are speak so passionate about his startups. I've actually never seen that that way, maybe apart from in other countries. So that's great to see. What now, or also speaking about kind of business world and economy, there recently have been quite some news in Stuttgart, like the area and Baden-Württemberg, as tax payments from especially automobile companies are going down. How do you see? So it's like maybe on a micro level, an exemplary of like the change process we're going through. How do you view like Baden-Württemberg and Stuttgart currently being like both in a way in both worlds? You see like the traditional world, but then you are in this innovative. Would you like? What's your thoughts around that?
I think that the whole transformation we see in the moment is very challenging for all the established companies, especially in the automotive sector, but as well in the machine building sector, chemical products as well. But these industries, especially here in the region, are very, very relevant, and they are as well innovative. Maybe in a more traditional field, and maybe now they have to transform into a specific technology direction, and maybe it's less evolutionary, the innovation, and it needs more risk in the direction of disruptive innovations, right? But all these sectors are well established, often family-owned businesses, medium-sized, and in the past very, very innovative. And I'm convinced that they have still the innovation power to move into that new world which we see in the next years, driven by AI and. So one thing is, I see that some of the companies struggle and they really have issues, but I see as well that they focus on innovation and that they see the opportunities as well which occur in the future. We have, as researchers, as institutions like Fraunhofer, we really have to support these classical industries because it's a high portion of the whole industry sector in Baden-Württemberg. On the other hand, we see that new sector of startups increasing, new businesses, robotics in medicine and. So there are a lot of success stories as well. But the industrial share in Baden-Württemberg is so huge, it's more than 30%, that these new industries can, in the moment, are not able to really cover the loss of workplaces maybe in the traditional industry. So our focus should be to do both now, to push new markets, new companies, startups, and on the other hand, to really support the existing companies in their traditional areas to do the next step into the direction, for example, of embodiment of AI or integrating biotechnology into their solutions, maybe stepping in new markets, medicinal products, pharmaceutical products, whatever. So we need kind of a double approach. Otherwise, I think we will be not able to really successfully manage that transformation.
Yeah. But maybe it's also positive for the startups. Like many years ago, Matt Kohler, one of the first Facebook employees, told me, you know what's the main issue for you guys in Germany is your traditional companies are too successful. They don't fail, which means people are not forced to try something new. Then additionally, your labor law is super strict. And now we are in a situation where actually there are some really kind of traditional companies that are failing, which obviously is not good in itself. But it's also an opportunity for a lot of new startups that suddenly they have a well-educated, talented workforce they can tap into that formerly wasn't available. What do you think would need to change, or is already on a good way, so that actually the startup world could kind of offset or maybe even do more in terms of to compensate the job loss that we currently see with a few companies in certain sectors?
Yeah, one focus should be to really work on the funding of the startups, because I see a lot of excellent ideas, not only here at the Fraunhofer IPA in the whole ecosystem, and there are a lot of excellent experts having good ideas, having entrepreneurial spirit, but they often struggle, as I mentioned, in financing the scaling phase of the businesses, and this is still, out of my point of view, one of the biggest issues we have. It takes definitely too long to grow the businesses in Germany. And when you want to grow the business fast, you have to leave Germany, you have to go somewhere else. And that we have to change. So whenever a company is successful, suddenly it's not longer in the hands of German owners, it's in the hands of international funds maybe, and then they are driven to go where the markets are, to go where maybe the conditions are a little bit better, and then often they are gone, or they only have small, or you leave some small subsidiaries here, and that's it. This is an issue. This we have to change. It's a pure money issue out of my point of view, and it's an issue of the framework conditions, the legal framework conditions, because in Germany you have a lot of money, right, in private hand. But this money is not invested in the same way in startups like we have it in the United States, for example. So we need to activate that money in order to grow our startups faster, in order to fail faster as well, and to really push the innovation, or to unleash the innovation power we have in our innovation system. I think that is one of the most relevant topics where we have to find a solution for in the next years.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, especially seeing that currently the world's 6 most valuable companies and also some of the world's most advanced companies from a technology perspective come all out of a university context and actually have been startups originally. So a huge opportunity, but also kind of important for whole Europe to push that forward. Maybe before we finish, one last question. Or pre-last? What goals have you set for the next 5 to 10 years for IPA?
So in the last 10 to 15 years, we grew very fast. So we doubled our size in the last 10 years, for example, concerning our budget and people. And now my target is to really do a consolidation phase and to focus on the real innovative topics. So my personal target is to get rid now, step by step, of all the things where I'm convinced of that they are not they have not the innovation level they should have. So I want to get rid of these topics and really focus on the hot research topics and consolidate the organization. And that is the reason why we as well have reorganized the whole institute in a kind of helix organization structure. Maybe I explain that maybe in another meeting. It's a little bit difficult, but we separated the money from the infrastructure, organizational wise, and that really helps to focus more on market success, because there's the money, and more on cooperation, because the resources, the infrastructure has to be combined in order to create solutions. And when you separate it, you have 2 different perspectives, but on the same topic, and that's very helpful in an organization to create attention, and to speed up all the processes. So that's very helpful, and that I think that's the basis for the consolidation we will go through in the next years. And from a research point of view, I see 3 big topics we are focusing on. One is the embodiment of AI. So that's especially for us, it's a game changer when you now really integrate AI into the hardware, into the machines. That will open a completely new world for autonomous production. Next big innovation field is the biological transformation. So the integration of hardware, software, and bioware into one system design, which is very, very relevant for process-oriented industries. And last but not least, as a basic or core technology, quantum technologies will be as well a game changer. And these three pillars will be, out of my point of view, the main focus areas for the next 10, 15 years for our research institution here in
Wow,
Stuttgart.
definitely super relevant topics. And finally, before we finish off, people who listen, what are you looking for? What should they think about? Who should call you up, message you for what?
Yeah, whenever you want to be an entrepreneur, you have an excellent idea and you bring an expertise and a motivation, contact us. Yeah, you're highly welcome. You're highly welcome as all of the people outside there. They're highly welcome when they want to work with us, cooperate with us, and they want to work in our institution, or even when they have also already created a startup idea, but they need maybe a little bit more technology or organizational structure or some competencies which are missing. Contact me and I will bring you together with our teams, and maybe we can help to really establish something really hot for the market.
Amazing. So we all hear IPA, a new force in the European startup ecosystem. Amazing. Thomas, it was so much fun talking to you. Really great to see your energy, your passion for your topic. So thanks a lot for taking the time.
Michael, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.